Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed, and in this tutorial I'll be doing note 6b, which is from week 8. This video is going to be a short video because in the notes everything is already solved, like all the code is already provided, but we're going to take a look at it and we're going to try to explain each line to make it easier for us to use later on in other projects. And hopefully, after we're done with this, I'm gonna make another video doing assignment 7 because assignment 7 is based on what you're going to do here. So the project that you're gonna do here, you're gonna modify it in assignment 7. And you're gonna modify it even further in assignment 8. Okay? So let's get started with this one. This is fairly easy. We're gonna create a new project. Again, it's a web project, ASP.NET Web. Make sure it's not core. We're gonna do next. We're gonna name it Shopping Cart Project. Create MVC and make sure that you have individual user accounts authentication set up, like so, because in this project we're gonna be using authentication as you can see here. Okay, so individual user accounts, MVC, create, and it should create it very quickly. Okay, perfect. So here we're gonna start by, so yeah, it says here that you have to create a project named Shopping Project, and we have to add an MDF file. This is a fancy word for database. So you have to create a database and add the following tables. So we're gonna go here, App Data, right click, Add, and SQL Server Database. We're gonna name this Shopping DB, so Shopping Database. Press on OK, and it should create the database for us. There we go, shoppingdb.mdf. This is the MDF file. Double click on it, and you should see that the tables are empty. We're gonna right click on tables and add a new table. Okay, so we have 4 different tables: the product, cart, customer, and cart item. We're gonna start with the product, so let's just copy this and paste it in the query section. Update. Give it a few seconds and update database. And then right click again, add another new table. We're gonna copy the customer table like so. Control C and Control V. There we go. Update. Update database. And then right click again, add new table. We're gonna go to the cart table, copy it, paste it here, and update. One more time for the last table. Right click on tables, add new table, copy the cart item. As you can see, this is a bit longer because it has references to the tables that we just created, the other tables. So it's important for you to just go one by one. So start from the left and then slowly go down. Paste, update, and update the database. There we go. Okay, now that we're done with the first part, so creating the tables, we're going to go on to the next step, which is creating the ERD model. This is another fancy word for just creating the models. Okay, so we go back to the Solution Explorer, scroll down to models, and as you can see, we already have a few models here because this is part of the authentication that we just added, or sorry, that we added in the beginning. So we're gonna go here and right click on models, add and we're going to select ADO.NET Entity Data Model. If you don't see this here, you can go to New Item, and you should find it in the Data section of Visual C Sharp, and then ADO.NET Entity Data Model. We're going to call this Shopping Models Add, and we're going to select this EF Designer. Next. And here we're going to select the tables that we created. So as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different tables. Finish. And it should add all the models for us. Just give it a few seconds. Okay, we're done. This is the ERD model. Now, since we added new models, we have to always rebuild after adding new models. So rebuild solution. Because it adds a few references, so we have to rebuild the model. Okay, so now that we have the models, we go on to the next step, which is building and creating the product controller. So you go to controllers. If you show the contents of the controllers, you should find a few controllers already there. That's also part of the authorization. So we're going to right click on controllers, add controller, and we're going to add the MVC5 controller with views using entity framework. Okay, because we already have the product model ready for us. So we're going to add it. We're going to choose the model. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of model classes here. Not all of them are important to us because most of them are part of the authorization that we added. So we only care about the ones that we added a few minutes ago. So for this one, we have to add the product controller. So we have to go to the product class. There we go. This is the product class. And choose choose the shopping DB, not the application DB. Okay, this is part of the authorization again. Okay, so shopping DB and add. So it should take a few moments. Okay, it's taking longer than expected. Let's just be patient. Anyways, for the next step, we have to add some data to the product table, and we have to add this to the menu. So a link to views product index. So we're gonna do this one first, and then we're gonna launch launch the project. Okay, so let's start with this step over here. Uh, this is still scaffolding. Okay, take your time, no problem. Okay, there we go. So scroll down to shared and then layout because we have to add something to the menu. Okay, so we have to add a link to products index. So we're gonna go here. We're gonna copy one of these and then paste them like so. Here we go. Contact, we're going to change this to products. And then this is the name of the action. So the action is index and the controller is products. Okay. Now we can launch the project or launch the web page. and then we can start adding data to the product table. Okay, so there we go. Come on. Not sure why this is a bit slow today, but okay. So products, unfortunately, I can't really speed up the video. But anyways, so products, we're gonna add new products. Uh, Toothpaste for, I don't know, 15 reals. And then uh, PlayStation 4 for, okay, PlayStation 5. It's a bit more expensive, so I don't know, 260. Okay. And one more thing, we're gonna add, uh, I don't know, what should I add? A fridge for 2000. Okay, there we go. So now that we have a few items in the product table, uh, we're gonna move on to the next step, which is adding the transaction controller. So we have to add an empty controller called transaction, which will be used to store the helper methods. Okay, so let's do this. Go back to the project, right click. Oh, I have to close out of this. Okay, so right click on controllers. We're gonna add, and instead of using entity framework, here it says that we have to add an empty controller. So empty, add it. We're gonna name it transactions or transaction. Okay, add it, and as you can see, it's an empty controller. Okay, so in the beginning, we have to add an instance of the DB context. So we can either copy it from here, or if you're afraid that the naming might be a bit different, you can go to the products controller that we created, and we can copy this from here. So this is the DB. Okay, add it to the transactions controller right here. Okay, and the next step is adding the authorize attribute at the class level. So this means that all the methods, oh sorry, this is, I have to be using the so using shopping cart models. Anyways, so the authorize means that all the methods, so all the actions, the index, the buy, the get user cart, whatever, all of them are only accessible if the user is logged in. Okay, so when it says here that you have to add the authorize attribute at the class level, so this is the class, right? We're going to go above the class and add an attribute like so. Just add the square brackets and then write authorize inside. There you go. Now, all the methods inside this class, which are here, the index and the rest that we're gonna add later, they're gonna only be accessible if you're logged in, if the user is authorized. Okay? So as you can see here, it makes it that it's only accessible to logged in users. Okay? Now, the next thing we have to add is the buy action. Okay? So add the method buy with the following signature. Public action result buy. So we're gonna add this here. We're gonna copy it because we're too lazy to write it ourselves. And there we go. Okay. Now, as you can see, there is an error here. It's giving us a weird error message. So it's giving us an error because we have to return a value. So we have to return something. We're gonna return view, even though there is no view. But for the meantime, I'm just gonna leave it at that because we have to write more code. Okay. So they're trying to basically show us what will happen if someone tries to use this method while not signed in. Okay, so this is just a demonstration. Okay, so this will be changed, obviously. So the next step is you have to call the method buy from the products page. We do this by adding buy to the product index after details. So what they mean by that is that if you go to the products page, the products index, you're going to notice that there is, so product index, and in the table there is, in the last column, you're going to find actions, so edit, details, and delete. So we're supposed to add one more action called buy that takes us to the transaction controller and passes the item ID. So we know that what they're talking about, which ID they're talking about. So we're going to copy this, again, because we're too lazy, and we're going to paste it here under this one. We're going to add this weird line and then paste the code that we just copied from here. And if you go to products now, you should see the buy action link. Again, it's a bit slow for some reason. There we go. So we have buy, and when you press on buy, remember, we're not logged in. So when you click on buy, it should ask us to log in because we have the authorize attribute. So as you can see here, we must register or sign in. So we don't have an account, so we're going to register as a new user. We're going to name it ahmed@gmail.com. The password is AA3456, and then, the usual 3456, register. Perfect. We're going to save it because we're too lazy to write it again. Now that we're logged in, if you go back to products and you try to buy, it's going to throw an error that it couldn't find the view. So basically, it worked. It took us to the buy action, okay, because we're already logged in, and it's giving us this error because we don't have a model for the buy action, which is okay. We're not done yet, okay? So we can move on to the next step. So click the user registration link on the menu to register a new account. We already did that. Okay, blah blah blah. Uh, we don't need to get into this because it's fairly clear. Okay. So when the user clicks buy, an entity record is updated in each of these tables. Customer. So this is what we're trying to do. Okay. So we're trying to, first of all, check the customers table. If the record with this username does not exist, so if the customer is not there in the customers table, we're going to create a new record and add it. Okay. Second, for the cart, if the user does not have an unpaid cart, we're going to create a new cart record and we're going to add it to the table. The ID is automatic. The customer ID is set to the customer's username. And status is by default unpaid. Okay? And for the cart item, we're going to add a new record. And of course, ID is automatic. The product ID is set to the ID of the product that you bought. And the cart ID is set to the ID of the cart. And quantity by default is set to 1. Okay? So, now that we know what to do, we have a brief, or an idea of what we're trying to accomplish. We're going to start with the buy method. Okay? So in the buy method, we have to perform the following steps. Number 1, we have to check the ID parameter. If the ID is null, or the product record with this ID is not found in the table or in the database, then we should stop everything and return an error message. Otherwise, we can continue. So we have to check this ID. Check if it already exists in the table or not. Okay, and then for the cart item table, we have to try to find if the item is already there inside the cart. If it's already there, okay, it means that the customer already has the same item in the cart. So what we need to do is we have to just increase the quantity by 1. Otherwise, we create a new cart item and add the product to that cart. Okay, so this is a different method. We're gonna go to it in a bit, but let's do this method first, the buy method. We can copy it, but I'm gonna go step by step. So as we said, the first step is checking first if the ID is null or not. Okay, so since this is an integer, we can just do if ID is null, then we can return an error message. So you can just copy it from here. HTTP status code result, and then we're gonna identify which type of status code we want the user to see. So in our case, it's gonna be a bad request because the ID is not given. The ID is null. It's empty. So the user must give us an ID. So bad request. We don't need this. We can just do using, where is it? Using system.net, okay? Wonderful. Now that we're done, we know that the ID is there. The ID is given. So here, if we already have an ID, we're gonna try to find a product with that ID. Okay, because this is gonna be the product ID. So we're gonna check if the product already exists or not. So we're gonna do product, or you can do var, by the way, it's fine. But product is more professional. So product is like var. Okay? Product equals db, which is this, dot products. So this is the table of the products, and then we're going to do find. So find us something that contains this ID. Okay, if it doesn't find one, it's going to be null. Product is going to be null. So if product is null, equals null, then we can return something else. We can return HTTP not found, like so. Okay. Sorry, I forgot to import this. There you go. Nope. Yeah, that's correct. Okay. So again, the ID. If the ID is not given, we're gonna return a bad request. If the ID is given, we're gonna go to the products table and try to find a product with that ID. If there are no products with that ID, so this means that if product is empty, is null, then we're gonna return HTTP not found for the user. Okay? And now that we're done, we can start by checking the carts. So we're gonna do, so here as you can see, you have to get the cart. So we have to add this method here, GetUsersCart. Okay, so we're gonna pause for a bit here. So we're just gonna leave it empty here. We have to add the getCart method before we complete the buy method. So we're gonna just minimize this and add the GetUsersCart method. So private cart get users carts. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a few more details about this format that we're using. So as you can see here, it says private cart instead of public action result. Now, this is new to us, but it's quite simple actually, because in this method or in this function, we're not trying to give the user a page. This is used internally. GetUsersCart is used behind the scenes. So this is not an action. This is not an action for the pages. Like you can't go to localhost and then slash transactions slash get users cart. This is not an action. This is just a private method that is used behind the scenes to give us a cart. So it's going to give us a cart. This is going to give us an action result because it's a page. This is not a page. It's only going to give us a cart. Okay? So let's start doing this. The first step, we have to get the username of the logged in person, of the logged in user. Okay, so you can start by doing string username equals. Oh, by the way, this is giving us an error now because we don't have anything returned. We don't have a cart being returned. Okay, we're gonna fix it later. Anyways, so username equals the user. There's an object called user. You can use it almost anywhere, and if you type it, you can just do dot identity dot name. This will give you the username or the email of the logged in user. Okay, this is really handy. You can use it a lot in a lot of different ways. Okay, so the next step is after you log in, after you get the logged in username, we're gonna try something. We're gonna see if we can find that customer or that user inside our customers database. Now remember, we have a table called customers. That table is empty. Even when you log in, it's empty. When do you fill it? When you're trying to get the user's cart. Okay, so we're gonna get the username and we're gonna try something. So try catch. This is a try catch block. What this does is that if any error happens while you're inside of the try, so if you encounter any kind of errors inside here, it's not gonna crash the application. No, it's gonna catch the error and transport you here. So let's say you have this line, and this line. So you have like 3 lines of code. And in this line, something wrong happens. Something like an error happens. It's not going to go to the next line, no. And it's not going to crash, no. It's going to transport you to here, to the catch block. Okay? And you have to specify what type of error it's going to catch. Okay? Anyways, we can try to go to the customers table, so db.customers, and then get the first result because we only care about the first one. So first, and then where customer equals, or the name, sorry, the username of the customer equals the username that we got. Okay, there we go. So again, let's go through this again. So we have the username of the logged in user, which is the email basically. So then we have to go to the database and select the customers table and get or check if there are any users that has the same username as the one logged in. Okay? If this fails, it's going to go here. It's going to give us an error message. Okay? So this means that the customer does not exist. If we go here, it means the customer does not exist. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new customer. So db dot customers dot add and we're going to add a new customer. You don't have to memorize all this code. You can just copy it and keep it on your cheat sheet. I always advise students to uh, uh, keep a soft copy of all the most used functions. Okay, it's better. Anyways, new customer, and then we're gonna set the name, the username. Sorry, user name. I'm sorry, I should have curly brackets, not that's why it wasn't helping me. Anyways, username, there we go. Okay, so this will add a new user to the database. Okay, and we have to save the changes, obviously, so it's db.savechanges after you added the customer. Okay, so we're gonna get the user of the logged in customer and then check if the customer exists. If he or she doesn't exist, we're gonna go here and we're gonna add a new customer and save the changes. Okay, so now we have a customer. The next step is getting the actual cart of that customer. So we're gonna start with an empty cart, or with a null cart. So no cart here. And by the way, I'm just copying from here. Okay, I'm just trying to explain each line. So we're gonna try again something else. We're gonna try to see if we can find a cart with the status of unpaid. Okay? If not, we're gonna go here inside the catch block. So try, and we're gonna do cart equals db.carts. So this will give us the table or the list of all the carts, but we only care about uh, the cart of the logged in customer and if the status is unpaid. So C, first of all, we have to check the username. So the name of the customer holding that cart. So C dot customer name equals the username that we just got, and it has to be unpaid. So the status of that cart, so C dot status, has to be unpaid, lowercase, because that's what's written there. So unpaid. Okay, so we have two different conditions. The first condition has to the name of the customer holding that cart should match the name of the customer that is logged in. And the second condition is that the status of the cart has to be unpaid. Okay? If this fails, if this gives us an error message, it means that the cart, or sorry, yeah, the cart doesn't exist. So what we have to do is we have to add a new cart. Okay? And if you go scroll up here, the cart has to have the, where is it? Okay, I can't seem to find it. Yeah, I can't seem to find it. Anyways, okay, so we have to add a new cart inside the catch block. So if this fails, we're gonna go here. First step is we're gonna create the new cart. So new cart, and we're gonna fill in the data. So the customer name, obviously, is the name of the logged in user, which is stored in the username variable. So here, this one. Okay. The status is unpaid because this is a new cart. Okay. So unpaid. And that's it. That's all you have to do. You have to just give it the username and the status. Okay. And last but not least, we have to add it to the database. So we created a new cart. We have to add it now to the database. So db.carts.add. Now again, I know we haven't in class we didn't really use these functions that much, but Again, you don't have to memorize everything, just copy it, keep it somewhere so you can use it later if you need it. So db.save changes. Because we added the cart, we have to save the changes. Okay? And we're done. Now we can just return the cart. Return the cart and we're done. This function now will always return a cart with the status of unpaid and a cart that belongs to the logged in user. Okay, so the first step, we get the logged in user, the name of the logged in user or the email, and then we check if the user is already in our customer's table. If he's not or she's not, we're gonna add them to the customer's table, like so, by creating a new customer and adding it to the table. And then we grab the carts. So if there are no carts with their name and the status unpaid, we're gonna create a new cart and add it to the carts table. That's it. Lastly, we're gonna return the cart that we created or that we got. Okay. So the try and catch is like an if statement. If this fails, this will happen. Okay. Now back to the buy method. So in the buy method, uh, we reached here. So here, there we go. Again, let's go through it again. So the first step is checking if the ID is given or not. In our case, check if the ID is given or not. If the ID is not given, it's going to be null. So if null, we're going to return a bad request error to the user so they know that they messed up with something. The next step is trying to, if there is an ID, we have to check if it's actually an ID of one of the products that we have in our table, in our database. So that's what we're doing here. We're getting the products table and we're trying to find something that has this ID. If it doesn't find anything, we're gonna return this error to the user, HTTP not found, because we weren't able to find the product with that ID. But if this is not true, this means that there is a product. Now we can add the product to the carts. But before we do that, first we have to get the actual cart of that user. So we're gonna do cart equals. This is exactly like var, okay, but it's more professional to specify the type of the data being stored in the variable. Okay. Then we can use the method that we just created, which is GetUsersCart. Like this is a really nice method. Like it handles everything and just gives you the cart, which makes everything just easier. Okay? The next step is we have to check if the cart already contains the same product. Because remember, if there's a product with the same ID in the cart, we have to only increase the quantity. Like we don't have to add the cart item. We can just increase the quantity. Okay, so we're gonna do a try and catch block like we did in the previous method. Okay. By the way, there's an easier way to do this without the try method. We can just use if conditions, but since it's using try and catch here, I'm gonna use it. If you have, like, if you want me to show you the other method, just let me know. Anyways, so if found, increment the quantity. So if we find the item in the cart, we're gonna just increase the quantity. So we're gonna make a new variable, cart item. This is the type of the variable, and then the name of the variable. So cart item equals db dot. We're gonna go to the cart items table, and we're gonna get the first result of this conditional statement, which is first we have to check the cart ID. I'm just gonna put it here. So check the cart ID. So c.cart ID. If it matches cart ID, if it matches the ID of the cart, because we're gonna have a lot of different cart items for a lot of different carts. We want to first check if this cart item belongs to the cart that we have. Okay, so this is the first thing. We have to make sure that this item belongs to our cart. Okay, the second condition, so and c.product ID, so the ID of the product inside this table matches the product ID of the product that is added, or sorry, the product that we found using the ID given. Okay, so we're checking. Let's go through it again because it can be a bit confusing. Okay, so in this line over here, we're going to create a new variable called cart item. Cart item will first, okay, so we'll first go to the database and then the cart items table, and we're going to try to look for something that fulfills two different conditions. The first condition is that the cart ID of that cart item matches the cart ID of the current cart. Okay, because in this table, the cart items table, we're gonna have all the items for all the different carts. Let's say we have 100 customers. All the items inside of each of these carts will be stored in the same table. So we have to filter them out. We have to filter and only get the cart items that have the same ID as our cart ID. Okay? The second condition is that we have to check if the product is already there. So let's say I already have toothpaste in my cart. If I try to add another toothpaste, this will know because this will check if the toothpaste is already inside the table or not. So if it's already inside the table, then we're just gonna increment the quantity. We don't want to add it again as a new item, as a new product. So we're just gonna do cart item, which is this one here, this variable. So cart item dot quantity plus plus. This will increment it by 1. So if it's 0, it's going to be 1. If it's 1, it's going to be 2. Okay? And that's it. However, if it doesn't go through, if something goes wrong, if it's not found, we're going to go to the catch block and we're going to create a new cart item. So cart item, this is the data type, and then this is the variable name. And we're gonna equal this to new cart item, so a new cart item. And we're gonna specify the product ID, which can be equal to either ID, because we already have the ID of that product, or to be on the safe side, you can do product.id, because we got it from here. This is the product that we found, and then the ID. It's safer that way. Okay? And then for the customer ID, sorry, the cart ID, cart ID is going to equal to the cart that we have for the user dot ID. This is uppercase. And last but not least, the quantity. So it should always be 1 because this is a new item. It's not already inside the cart. So it's 1. That's the default value for the cart item. And we're going to just add it to the database. So cart items, and then we're going to add the cart item. Perfect. Now, lastly, we're going to just we're going to save the changes. And we're going to redirect the user. So instead of returning view, we don't want to return view. I forgot the semicolon. Instead of returning the view, we're going to return a redirect to the action, which is details carts and we're going to specify or give it the ID of the cart that we just got. So cart.id. So I'll tell you what we're trying to do here in a bit. Okay. So after adding the item to the cart, we want to send the customer back to his or her cart. Okay, so we're gonna redirect to the details action of the cart's controller, and we're gonna give it this parameter, the ID of the cart, so it knows which cart we're talking about. Okay, now as you know, we don't have a controller for the cart, so we're gonna add one right now. So we're gonna add a new controller using entity framework for the cart. Okay. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Create a scaffold controller based on cart model, and we're gonna call it carts. Okay. And now we have to run the application and click the products menu item, select buy, and a customer object should be created. And then the controller is gonna transfer from the buy method to the cart details, passing the cart ID as a parameter, and it should display the cart. So let's do that. Let's go to the products menu and we're going to try to add a product. I'm sorry, this is a bit of a long video. It's almost at 50 minutes long. So I apologize. It is a long PDF. It's not easy, so we have to, keep doing this over and over again until we manage to understand most of the things. So as you can see, this is the products page. If we try to buy something, let's say I buy the PlayStation 5, it should first ask me to log in because I'm not logged in. So log in. The next step is it's gonna transfer me to the cart items. Sorry, to my cart. Okay. Now there are a few issues here. The first issue is that the name is not visible. I'll tell you how to fix this in a bit. And the second issue is that we can't see our items that we added. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to the PDF, and they've given us a code that will show us the table. So let's just copy this code over here really quickly. So I'm gonna copy this code, and we're gonna paste it in the details of the cart controller. So carts details, and we're gonna add it here after this. There we go. Let's save it and go back, refresh the page. We should see a table of, there we go, product name, product price, quantity. So the 6 is not supposed to be here because we copied the page number. Anyways, There we go. It's working just fine. So what this is doing is that it's going to the model, which is the cart, and then the cart items for that model. And then for each cart item, it prints out the name, price, and quantity. Let's go back here and check if this is what's required. Yeah, there we go. Okay, perfect. Now, we have to add MyCart to the main menu. So the above page is displayed if the user clicks buy, and then to view the cart without clicking buy, we have to add a link to the main menu that points to the cart details. Okay, so let's add this line over here to the layout. Oh, sorry, yeah. So this will not work. This will give you an error message because if we do this, it's going to send us to the details page without the ID, which will give us a bad request because the details page needs an ID so it knows which cart we're talking about. So this will not work. To make it work, we have to change it to this, and we have to add a method called MyCart to the transactions controller. Now this method is gonna do two simple things. First of all, it's gonna get the cart of the logged in user. Second thing is that it's gonna redirect us to the details page, and it's gonna include the ID of the cart. Okay, so we can just copy this directly. It's quite easy. Transaction. You can add it under the buy method, like so. Okay. Oh, sorry. There we go. Okay, so this is the MyCart method. It's gonna get the cart with our GetUsersCart method, and then it's gonna redirect us to the cart's details page, and it's gonna pass in this parameter, the ID of the cart. Okay, and then we can simply just copy this code and add it to the layout next to the products page or the products action link. Okay. Now that we're done with this, we can yeah, so notice that the name is not displayed. This is because the customer name is retrieved from the customer table, and when you added a new customer, only the username was added, not the name. So we have to add it using the customer controller. So we're going to create a customer controller, but before we do, let me just show you this MyCart action link to see if it works. It should yeah, there we go. This is our cart. Before we added this button, the only way to access this page was by going to products and adding a new product. But now we can just go to my cart and it should show us this. Okay? Now, we have to create a customer controller or customers controller by adding a scaffold controller. So, we're going to go to controllers and add a new controller using entity framework because it says here scaffold. Add it. The class is going to be carts. Sorry, customer. Okay. And the rest is the same, so just add it directly. And it should add the customer controller. Now, okay, we have the customer controller. We're gonna mess around with it later, but for now, let's focus on this, the carts index. So, if you log out and log in with a different user and try to add items to the cart, and go to the carts index, it's going to show you a list of all the carts for all the users, which is not good. We don't want this to happen. So we only want the carts index to show the carts for that specific user. So here, so this is how the index of the carts controller looks like. So it takes the table of the carts and it adds all the items. So all the carts and shows them in the view. We don't want this. We want to filter out the users. So we're going to take the username of the logged in user, and before returning it, we're going to check. I'm going to remove this one. We're going to comment this out. And we're going to check if the customer name of that cart matches the username of the logged in user. Okay? This will force it to only give us the carts of the logged in user. Okay? Now, we can go to the carts index and start messing around with it, making it cleaner. It should be here, carts and then index. So we don't want to create to give the user the option to create uh, a new cart. So we're going to remove this because we already create the cart for the user automatically. And then we have to remove the edit link because we don't want the user to change the status of his cart. Okay. So we're going to remove the edit. I'm removing it by commenting it out. But you should delete this, like you should remove it. And for the delete, we only should allow allow the user to delete the cart if the status is unpaid. Okay, so we can use this code over here to only show the delete button if if the status is unpaid. So let's remove this. Let's remove the delete and check if the status of the item is paid or not. That should do it. Okay, perfect. Now let's try to run the code, or run the page. So it's the carts index. So carts index. We have an error message here. This is due to the TD being used twice, if I'm not mistaken. Let's try to refresh again. There we go. So we have the delete here because it's unpaid, and we don't have the create new cart button. And we also don't have the delete button, which is good. Okay? Wonderful. Now, the last step here is we have to replace the name column with the amount column. So when you go back to the list, as you can see, there's a name column here. But this is useless because if the user is already logged in, we shouldn't be writing the name of we shouldn't be writing his name here because he already knows that it's his cart. So we're gonna change this with the amount of the products inside this cart. So the PlayStation 5, it's 259. Okay, so sorry. Back to the list. We're gonna take the total and set it as 0. So here inside this, on the outside, we're gonna create a new variable called total, and we're gonna store the number 0 in it. Okay, so this is the starting value, and then we can use this link expression instead of this long loop. This is useless, by the way. We don't want this. And the total for each cart is going to be stored in the total variable. So what this does is it takes the item, which is the cart, and then goes to the cart items of that cart and sums the items by doing this, by taking the quantity and multiplying it by the product price. And then this keeps on adding up for all the cart items. Okay? This here basically turns the quantity into an integer. Same with this one, turns the price into an integer. Because without this, we're going to have an error message, like so. See, it's going to just... There we go. So it cannot implicitly convert int to int. So we have to have the cast thingy. Okay? And yeah, that's pretty much it. We're done. We need to change this to say amount instead of customer name. And instead of showing the customer name, we show the total. But we have to add the at icon. So at total, and then we can add QAR or something just to make it look prettier. So let's refresh the page. Yeah, I forgot to add the semicolon. There we go. The amount of this unpaid card is 2599. Let's try adding a different product. Let's say we want to add another PlayStation 5. So we're going to buy it. It's going to increment the quantity without adding a new item. If you go to the MyCart page, sorry, back to list. So this is all my carts. It should update the amount. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the first part, which is note 06B. We're gonna do the rest later for assignment 7. I'm gonna try to film it by tonight. But this has been a really long video. I'm extremely sorry. I hope you you understood everything. And this time, I'm not going to be providing the project file because it's better if you do it yourself. It's better if you try it yourself and try to fix the errors yourself. Okay? It's more beneficial to you. I can give you the project. It's not gonna hurt me, but it's better if you try it by yourself. And it's even better if you encounter problems and solve the problems by yourself. Okay? So this will help you during the tests, troubleshooting the issues. And yeah, sorry again for the long video. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next video. Bye.